By the way, speaking of enshittification, what do you guys think about what those apartments were trying to do with bank username and password to verify your income?
That is such a scam.
There is no reason ever that you should be giving that up. Ever.
That is crazy.
I mean, you can get certified copies of your bank statements if they really want directly from the bank, I'm pretty sure, and give that to them, but never, ever give them direct access to your entire freaking life.
Like Lovecraft said in Matrix, man, I've gone through 2 mortgages too, and I've never once had to give up that type of information. No!
By the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I had mentioned my girlfriend was looking for a new apartment, and to verify her income, they asked her to sign into a service where you need to give them your bank username and password, and then they can verify your income that way.
Never gonna happen.
Please tell me you reported them to somebody.
Well, I looked it up, and it's not illegal for them to ask for that.
As long as you are willing to give it up. That's the thing. Our privacy laws are so shit in this country. Like, companies can do all of these things that you and I will sit here and say, how is that even legal? There's just no protections. Like, between that type of stuff and data brokers and no, I mean, it predates him. I mean, this is something that should have been done.
I'm just giving
20
the
years
most
ago.
Obvious current example.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it is. When I talk to people from any other country, because we're really one of very few countries that allow this type of abuse of personal information. I talk to people from other countries and they're like, it literally blows my mind that there are companies that exist solely to suck up and house personally identifiable information, like all of this very personal information that they should never have access to, yet they're allowed to not only take it, store it, but they're allowed to sell it. It's absolutely insane.
But I'm sure this is what this company was going to do with the info. By the way,
well, have you ever used a service like Mint, or there are financial services that'll help with budgeting, or they'll help you. There's one that shows you if you're signed up for a bunch of streaming services and how to simplify it. I can't remember what the hell it was called, but it's one of those stupid YouTube advertisers. Anyway, a lot of those services work exactly like that, where you sign in through their service into your financial institution. And basically what you're allowing it to do is because your bank allows you to do an electronic export or an API sort of call to their records so that you can get your account transactions, right? That's what they're doing, is they're pulling in your financials via it's like if you were using QuickBooks or TurboTax or something like that. They sort of can do the same thing if you let them. But that's exactly the same technology. It sounds like that this I mean, listen, real estate is fraught with this type of abuse of landlords abusing tenants. I mean, it to the point where, during the pandemic, they had to put a freeze on, evictions because of them, trying to cash in. And basically, and this was happening too. I just heard about it in California, and except it's completely illegal to do this. After the fires, there were so many families and people looking for housing that everything that was for rent, no matter how bad a deal it was an option, because you need somewhere to live. And there's supposedly a law where they can't raise more than 10% in a certain amount of time or something like that. But there were all these reports of landlords basically probably mostly illegally and mostly under the table saying things like, well, if you sweeten the deal, or basically asking for bribery, more or less. But yeah, this type of stuff, listen, I'm going to pay you my first and last month's rent. And then if I don't pay you, yeah, I don't know. I have a fundamental problem with the way that tenants can be treated, but then I also have a problem with squatters' rights. The idea is that someone can't be evicted for longer than it should take to get someone out that's not paying, right? So I just think the whole system's less than ideal. But yeah, I suppose I'm assuming you told her not to do that, right?
Yeah, so I was going to tell you the rest of the story, how it
Please,
played out.
please.
So yeah, several times they wanted, and she would say, look, I'm not comfortable giving you that information. And they said, oh, well, they don't do anything. All it does is verify your income. Meanwhile, it sees every single transaction and deposit you've ever made, So she said, so she asked, can I just submit my pay stubs? And they hemmed and hawed and said, okay, there should be an option on there somewhere to submit your pay stubs. So she found it, but whenever she would choose to submit her pay stubs, it would just submit the application. So it wouldn't let her, through the website, submit her pay stubs like they said it would. And she told them, and I don't think they really believed her, and so she had to actually take her laptop up there and show them, hey, this is what you're telling me to do. And when I go to submit the pay stub, it just submits the application. And they said they finally saw it for themselves, so they said they had to speak with their manager or whatever. Somebody got a hold of the software company that uses the or that creates the service, and then today finally they sent her a link, and she clicked on that link, and they fixed the quote unquote bug, and she was able to submit her just regular pay stubs instead of giving access to her account. And we were saying, was this really a bug, or was this intentional, so that this service can actually, make you feel like you're forced into giving up that information? And how many other people gave up the information because they felt like they didn't have a choice, and things like that. So anyway, she was able to just do her pay stubs.
So what this reminds me of, in a way, is automobiles, and how there was this huge, and hopefully it sounds like they're trying to address it, but basically auto manufacturers were putting in, because they have an always connected system. Most cars, now have always on internet, whether you know it or want it or not. And so they are basically tracking you, capturing all your data, and then they were selling it, and still are, as far as I know. Again, LexisNexis, some of these data brokers selling data to the insurance companies, and then people's rates were going up, and it's like, well, what did I do? And basically insurance companies saying, well, you have risky behaviors. We have data that shows that you're hard braking and accelerating, quickly, and like driving over the speed limit, and like all these things, and basically being surveilled by your car.
I live in Dallas. I end up hard braking every day because some dumbass pulls in front of me.
Right. And you can say that, and of course that's the truth. I mean, you can say, look, it's not like I'm driving like a maniac, but of course they can use that as a convenient excuse to say, oh, well, you're an aggressive driver or whatever. And it's like, I couldn't believe this was actually a Mozilla thing where I found this out. They have a report card on like the worst privacy, the worst industries for privacy, and like cars were one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, and it's all about like which manufacturers are the worst at it and all that. But yeah, apparently this did get some attention, I think last year, from Congress, about like, why is it legal to be surveilled like this by the car manufacturer? But it also makes me think, not to keep belaboring this, but do any of you use the option from your auto insurance to plug something into your ODB?
No, I would never do that.
Isn't that insane? Would you?
No. I have something
like,
plugged into my ODB, but it's because I put it there and I use it for monitoring things that my Mini won't tell me.
Right. But, the insurance companies are doing that, where they're like, well, we'll give you, 10% off if you let us keep an eye on you, you know.
Yeah,
And it's like
my
that same
privacy is worth
mentality.
way more
But
than that.
I've seen the
To me.
reports that say that is specifically so that they can go back and look and say, "Oh, you braked hard. Oh, you were speeding.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not paying."
Yep.
So no, never,
Yep.
ever.
My agent, like, and I know this is automated through the corporate structure, the corporate marketing, but I called my agent and I said, you can stop asking. I will never give you access to that information, and you can say that makes me look guilty, or you can say whatever, bullshit you want to. Like, I am never letting you intentionally, surveil me like that. Like, that's crazy.
Why are you going to pay for a service when they're going to take the information that you give them and then not pay when they're supposed to pay?
I mean, it's bad enough that they already use your credit report to establish rates, right? Like, your credit worthiness is how much you would pay. It should just cost what it costs, right? There shouldn't be a sliding scale. It shouldn't matter. It should be, this is what you pay for the car that you're driving, for the area you live in. Like, there can be, different, but the fact that they profile you that way, and now, cars can track you and then they sell it back to them. Like, that type of stuff to me is the dystopian future. The whole concept of, like, Zuckerberg saying privacy's dead and there's no concept of, privacy. And I give up a lot to live in the modern world. I understand that when I'm using a Google product, or I'm using, like, I know what I'm doing. I'm making that decision consciously. But whenever you buy a car and it's going to report everything you do without any way for you to do anything about it, like that's and yeah, I can't deal with that.
when companies start, trying to charge you a monthly fee to use your heated seats, there's a freaking problem.
Yeah, and not just a little bit. Like, some of that stuff was really expensive. Mercedes was trying to do something like that too.
I believe that's the one I was talking
No,
about.
BMW was the heated seats one.
Okay.
Yeah, they pulled that back, by the way, but they were testing the water, obviously.
Thankfully, the pushback was there.
Well, I watched a video the other day about it was from a Gen Z perspective of just everything in their lives is a subscription. They don't own anything. They don't own their music. They don't own any of their media. They don't own, so many things in their lives are down to a subscription based model. And it's like, I guess once enough people are used to that, or people like us who who know that you can own DVDs or have your own music or whatever, once we're no longer around, I guess, to explain that to people. Like, I'm not exactly sure what the end game of it is, because the rates just keep going up and up and up. I mean, I'm sure you guys see it, but, like, it's like every 6 months or every year, Netflix is more.
Netflix just raised their prices.
Yeah.
I know what the end game is for me. Is I'm not paying for that shit.
More. Well, what is it? What is it? Payment without ownership is something privacy. There's a whole piracy thing that I've seen, basically, that says, like, payment without ownership is. I can't quote it right now, but I get the sentiment. Morton sees a pirate. Yarr. Anyway, sorry to get us way off track like that, but
no, I mean, that's kind of how we do it here.
I was going to say we were on track.
Well, sometimes we are, I think.